Jesse Minter led the NFL's best defensive unit last year, but they are struggling mightily in 2025, and I think it's fair to wonder whether we were too quick to anoint him as the next great thing.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. And to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, last year, Jesse Minter took the league by storm, authoring one of the best defenses in the NFL, which was very refreshing after seeing some really bad defenses under Brandon Staley. But so far this year, it's been a lot of hot and cold, and lately, it's been really, really cold. So we got to have a conversation about the Chargers defense. And, of course, the trade deadline is still upcoming. So should the Chargers make a move? Should they not make a move? And one of the moves that they did make is let one of the core 4 special teamers slip away.
Yeah, see you later, Caleb Murphy, but also have to get into Oronde Gadsden, who truthfully might not be an overreaction to say he's the best since Antonio Gates. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Thank you to the everydayers for your contributions on today's Buy or Sell show, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And of course, after a game like that, there's going to be a bunch of each of those. But I do think this sentiment was shared by many, from Mike D here, who says, buy or sell Jesse Minter's defense. Chargers are healthy on that side of the ball and look awful and losing us games. Was Minter just a flash in the pan, or can he turn it around? David, I think many fans are wondering this as well, because I think we really quickly went from, oh my God, Jesse Minter might leave the Chargers because he's such a good defensive coordinator. And it feels like now through 7 weeks, it feels anything, it feels very, very far away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first 3 games of the season, everything kind of continued as they were. I mean, it looked pretty good. I mean, they were doing a good job of keeping teams in check, and they were creating turnovers, and they were able to get off the field. But the last 3 games in particular, things have really kind of gone off the rails. 377 yards per game over the last 3 games, allowing over 140 rushing yards over the last 3 games. 18th in points, which is only 23.3, but over the last 3 games, allowing over 30 points per game. And also just not doing well in the red zone, allowing touchdowns 69.23% over their last 3 games. So it's just been a lot of bad on that side of the ball. And yeah, I mean, they've been mostly healthy. I mean, they've still dealt with some injuries as well. And Khalil Mack came back, but was only able to produce 12 snaps, right, as they kind of return him back to play. So yeah, there's definitely been mostly health, but I think to me the biggest issue is their inability to stop the run, and I think everything kind of revolves off of that big issue.
Yeah, like I said, shout out to Jackson asking about, if we trust the defense. Shout out to all the, people wondering about this specific thing, or even comparing him to Brandon Staley. And I think the biggest difference there is just like, we've actually at least seen Jesse Minter produce a top defense, which Brandon Staley didn't do in any of his, 3 seasons as the Chargers head coach. But yeah, I mean, the run defense still really bad. But I think more than that, though, as far as at least the Jesse Minter part of it, is just how off balance this defense seems to be against these good offenses so often. Like, I understand great offensive minds, but guys are just getting schemed up way too quickly or way too easily for just wide open chunk plays. And it just feels like whatever buttons he's pushing, the opponent, the opposing offense feels like they know what buttons he's going to push and know exactly how to attack it. I think the run defense is most concerning because, I just don't understand. I don't envision how it gets so much better, right? Like, effort has to get better, tackling has to get better, just being where you're supposed to be has to get better. But there has to be a certain level of physicality that you have to wonder if they have enough of it on the roster. And I do think it really shines a light on how little talent was added to this team defensively. Yes. Right? It was basically bounce back mercenary type of players and a couple of mid to late round draft picks for what they've added so far. So I think there's a lot to go around. I don't think that Jesse Minter is a flash in the pan. I think you see other defenses like a Mike McDonald, who, is running it successfully, and other guys that are running similar things.
Yeah.
We saw it work last year. But I think the hard thing is like they did get exposed last year against good teams. And the other part is last year they got to beat up on a lot of really bad teams, and they haven't had those layups on this year's schedule, and it feels really, really bad the last few weeks. But I'm not totally bailing on Jesse Minter. I think there's a lot that goes into it. But, man, I mean, it could go south even more quickly if they don't figure something out. Let's get to this one here from Andoni, who says, we need help on defense more than we need help on offense. I think this is a sentiment that really could only kind of happen right now, David. A lot of the focus was helping the Chargers, especially on their offensive line. But I actually don't think this is an overreaction to talk about this, because at least on offense, you might have some guys coming back. Defensively, who you have is kind of who you have.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. And I think on offense, at least there are things that you can point to and say, okay, that's successful. Like they have 3 guys that are over 300 yards receiving so far this season. I mean, they're spreading the ball around on offense. There are some things that you look at and say that they have been successful. On defense, it's a lot harder to find those successes that they've had. So I do feel like that side of the ball, especially recently, obviously recency bias is a big part of it. They do need a lot of help there. And I don't know where it's going to come from other than, just an improved play and then, guys getting a little bit more on the football field. But it's a massive issue. I mean, if they can't stop these, high-powered offenses, and there's still a few more of them on the schedule that they're going to have to play against, then this could get really ugly. Right now, like they're kind of getting close to being at a crossroads, being at 4-3. So they have to be able to take care of some of these teams that are coming up on their schedule, because things are not going to get any easier after these next few games.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, is it has to be both. Like, it has to be Jesse Minter being better. It has to be the Chargers players being better and executing better, because, like, there really isn't any help coming. Deshaun Hand was really good for the Chargers, honestly, but, like, that doesn't fix everything. So I think the other concerning thing is just, like, not a ton of young talent on that side of the ball that for sure is good. I still believe in Dan Henley, Jamar Caldwell, Tarheeb still probably fits in that category, but, like, there's not enough. It feels like, the foundation is a little older. Your best players are a little older. But I also think that is a big part of this, David, is just that the Chargers aren't getting enough from certain players. And I think it leads to this buy or sell here, which is just buy or sell. The Chargers need more from their stars on defense.
1,000% buy. I think you look at it and you see these guys that usually really excel in certain avenues. Like, Derwin James is usually a stuff the stat sheet type of player, and he's had 3, 5, and 7 tackles in his last 3 games. He did have the pick, in that kind of garbage time situation in Miami. But besides that, he's been out of place a lot in run support, and it's been kind of uncharacteristic. And then for Deion Henley, 8, 7, and only 2 tackles the last game. But I think the most concerning thing for him is what has been happening in his pass coverage. He's usually excellent in that avenue. The last 3 games, teams have been targeting him and finding a lot of success. 14 receptions on 15 targets for 143 yards and a touchdown. That's just very, very uncharacteristic for a guy who, to me, is one of the better coverage linebackers in the league. And also Khalil Mack coming back from injury, played 12 snaps, was able to get in there on a sack. Hopefully his snaps will see an increase as he's able to feel better, because they need him. They need him in run support as well as getting after the passer. He is such a force on the edge.
Yeah, and they just, like we talked about, they don't have enough talent, obviously, outside of their big stars defensively to make up the difference if those guys aren't good. Like, every week in and week out, those have to be 3 of your top 5 or 6 players. So, like, that's just what it is. But the Deion Henley part's really confusing, because I think the hard thing is, like, he started this season doing exactly what we thought he would. He looked like he was picking up right where he left off, and not only that, looked like he'd even improved on last year's version. But since that flu game against the Raiders, it's just been bad. I mean, 2 tackles in that last game, only 2 defensive stops, like positive defensive plays where he's, stopping a pass, stopping a run that's close to the line of scrimmage. He has 2 of them in his last 3 games. Like, that's just not the Deion Henley that we expected. And, like, there's just not enough in the middle of that defense to kind of overcome the shortcomings he's had over the last several weeks. There are serious problems, but the stars have to be stars for the Chargers to have any chance. But there was a star on Sunday. He just played on the other side of the ball. It was Oronde Gadsden. And like I said, I don't think it's crazy to think he could be the best Chargers tight end since Antonio Gates. So we're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
I also need to tell everyone about Mazda, because Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. The only player that reminds me of a Mazda right now is Oronde Gadsden II. Fast, dependable, smooth. But with Mazdas, you can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery, and you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, with smooth handling and intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, so you can also drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. David, let's continue our buy or sells here with one that I believe might not be that much of an overreaction from We Are the Storm, who says buy or sell. Oronde Gadsden II is the best tight end the Chargers have had since Antonio Gates. David, are you buying or selling it?
Yeah, I think this is a guy who we were really excited about really since, voluntary workouts, where he was starting to kind of show himself as a weapon very, very early on, and that carried itself all through the offseason and into the regular season now, coming off of an absolutely monster performance. And for Oronde Gadsden, I think you have to look at the next best tight end, obviously outside of Antonio Gates, which is Hunter Henry. And Hunter Henry, I'd say his best season with the Chargers was 2019, 55 catches, 652 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And for Oronde Gadsden so far, he is on a torrid pace, especially so far, our last few games. 22 receptions on 28 targets, 308 yards, and a touchdown in only 7 games. And he has 10 more games to add to that total, and he's going to be a focal point of this offense going forward, especially after that big performance. So, no, I don't think it's an overreaction at all, and I am buying that Oronde Gadsden is going to be the best tight end that the Chargers have had since the great Antonio Gates.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he also had a buy or sell if he could be the best tight end they've ever had, but I think it's too early to put him in the pantheon with the Antonio Gates. And also don't forget about Kellen Winslow either.
Not at all.
Two Hall of Famers officially now. But I don't think this is crazy. I mean, I think the crazy thing is, David, to me, the fact that we were talking about this dude being a healthy scratch for the first 2 weeks, because you're talking about 7 games. He hasn't played in 7 games.
Yeah.
He's only played in 5 games.
That's
I mean, the
true.
first game he came up, he was an instant, immediate impact guy against the Broncos and really helped them win that game.
Sure did.
I don't think it's crazy. Like, I think he, has the chance, at least as a receiver, to be better than Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is a well-rounded player.
Very much
rookie
so.
season of, 45 catches, 579 yards, I think is very much in play for Oronde Gadsden. Oronde is going to blow away what Antonio Gates was able to do in his rookie season. He had 393 receiving yards. OG has 303 already. But the most rookie tight end receiving yards in 40 years is what he did in that game for the Chargers. More than any rookie so far. Any rookie has had receiving so far amongst all players, not just tight ends as well. Second now, really passed up a couple of guys this week in rookie receiving yards for tight ends, only behind Tyler Warren, who also had a big game in that one. Also just fourth amongst all rookies. This 5th round pick, with all the receivers that were drafted in such a heavy receiver draft, he's fourth in the NFL as far as receiving yards for rookies. It's awesome. And I think in the last game, he just showed everything, right?
Yeah, he
like,
did.
He showed the yak ability. He showed the contested catch ability. He showed the body control along the sideline. He showed that he could go over the middle and make a tough catch when he has to. But he just has such incredibly soft hands that are reminiscent of guys like Gates and Hunter Henry, who both just caught everything in their
QB
vicinity,
friendly,
right? And I just think that, like, who knows how far the blocking gets? It doesn't matter. The dude is such a talented receiver and such a mismatch. He has to be a focal point of the offense going forward. And credit to the Chargers, because he was that in this game, and they needed every bit of it and even more. But just an incredible game, 164 yards. I mean, maybe we're spoiled by, Ladd McConkey's 197-yard game in the playoffs, but man, that's pretty special. And I think it leads to this here from Tucky Luciano, who says, buy or sell, the offensive skill groups are set. The entire focus next offseason should be the trenches and DBs. David, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I like what the Chargers did to focus on adding to their weapons at the expense of improving their offensive line. But obviously that's not this conversation. But you look at the young nucleus of the Chargers weapons, and I think you have to be happy with what you see. Omarion Hampton, obviously injured, but you already saw this guy has the goods for sure. Ladd McConkey, still young, definitely a beast, one of the better young receivers in the league. Love what Trey Harris has shown us in kind of limited spurts with his run blocking, with his physicality, with his yards after catch ability. Obviously, with the guy we just talked about, Oronde Gadsden II. All these guys are going to factor heavily in the future of the Chargers offense. So yes, they absolutely need to hammer those resources that they have. Which mostly are going to be, free agent money. Looking at the books next year, they're going to have a ton of cap space to work with, and they absolutely need to weaponize that in a much more effective manner than they did this offseason, adding to the trenches, solidifying that offensive line. You solidify the weapons. Now make sure that you have the protection to use the weapons. I think that has to be obviously the game plan for next year.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, $111 million in cap space. Obviously, they had a bunch this year, but part of them, not doing as much this year was preserving next year's cap space and doing those one-year deals. Again, you're going to have a lot more guys you're going to have to bring back on one-year deals because you did it that way. So that number really is a lot less, but that is, enough money easily to help fix a lot of the problems that you have. And I think, this was a multi-year kind of rebuild for this regime to turn this team into a perennial championship contender. That being said, no excuses for what they left that interior offensive line with going into the season. It doesn't have to be that black and white. Like, I understand you wanted to commit to adding weapons for Justin Herbert, and you have young, really expensive positions like wide receiver figured out on the cheap for the next several years, which is great. At the same time, it's still been all mercenary bounce back guys in day 3 picks as far as what you've done at the cornerback position, what you've done on the defensive line. Obviously, you get, Justin Aboigbe as a 3rd round pick, Kyle Kennard as a 4th round pick, Jamari Caldwell as a 3rd round pick, but you can't keep waiting that long to bring those type of guys in. I mean, your first 2 picks the last 2 years have all been offense, all 4 players, Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey, Omarion Hampton, and Trey Harris. I like all those guys. But now it's time to, really pivot and start spending premier picks on the interior of the offensive line, premier picks at edge rusher, premier picks at cornerback, because that is what this team needs. And those are kind of the foundational building blocks of what makes a good team long term. So I agree. I mean, at least the weapons are set. Still a lot of work to be done. But let's get to this one from Mike W., who says, buy or sell, the Chargers have Joe Alt, Trey Pipkins, can't believe I'm saying that, and Hampton back. The offense can overcome the defensive deficiencies we're seeing. What do you think, David?
I mean, I love what the offense is able to do when Omarion Hampton is on the field, because he does provide that balance, which is something that has been desperately missing from this Chargers offense. Yeah, Kamani Vidal had a big game against the Dolphins, but came back down to earth against the Colts, where there really wasn't any running ability, and also they really couldn't run because they were so far behind. But I definitely feel like this defense is a huge issue, and I still feel like the rushing defense is at the epicenter of it all. If they can't stop the run, that means they can't rush the passer. And if they can't rush the passer, then they're going to continue to get gashed, throughout the season. So they have to fix that element. If they don't fix it, then it doesn't matter what the offense does, because they're not going to be able to score enough points to overcome what the defense has been doing, which has been allowing teams to score at will.
Yeah, like I do think the point of this is like, yeah, I do think with those guys back, you'll have more capability to win the shootouts when they break out, but like to David's point, like when the run defense is so bad, it makes you have to be so efficient offensively because the other team is just grinding down the game and taking away possessions from you. And the Chargers, with what they have right now, aren't able to score quickly and find those chunks because they don't have the protection to do it. I think this offense is pretty close to being pretty good, right? And I think they, should have obviously put up like 35 plus points this week against, a defense that had their own issues. But I do think as long as the interior is the same, the ceiling for this offense is only going to be so good. And I think the hard thing about the defense is you can't trust the defense to win you games now. And then with the offensive line situations, it's hard to think that you're just going to outscore everyone every week. But we do have more to get into, including if the Chargers now, after spiraling a little bit, still think this is a team that's worth trading players onto. We're going to get into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss, because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you will unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during game. And I love live in-game betting where you can get a feel for things, especially when you feel things start to slip away, going heavily in the other direction. But in general, it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And the odds are out for this week, and the Chargers are favorited by 2.5 points on Thursday night at home against the Vikings. Don't have to travel, which is nice. We know they have a bunch of injuries, but a lot to bet on from that game, including anytime touchdown scores. Who's going to score the first touchdown? So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. David, we still have some more buy or sells, and a shout out to the everydayers for all of your great contributions. I'm sure we'll be using some of the buy or sells we got this week, even on next week's buy or sell show, because we had so many good ones. But thank you for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, check out Locked On NFL, which has 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman Rowland and my guy Tony Wiggins on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from if you want to keep up with everything going on around the NFL. But David, let's get to this buy or sell that we have here. And it's a good one from Antonio GN, who says, buy or sell, Joe Ortiz will still add talented players to both the interior offensive line and the defense this season. David, we know he's willing to wheel and deal. Do you have confidence that those trades are still coming?
No, I don't have confidence that those trades are still coming. And the reason why is because they don't really happen anyway. I mean, we've talked about this many, many times for especially, offensive linemen. Defensive linemen, they get moved. Edge rushers, they get moved. I mean, we've seen that quite a bit. Obviously, the Chargers acquired one. But I just don't see how they are going to find anyone that's going to be willing to part from a quality offensive lineman, because they have players that they need to protect as well, just as much as the Chargers do. And I would love to see it, obviously. I among many others, would love to see them go out there and spend, but they don't have a lot of cap space, so they're going to have to get creative. And they have to move some money around, and they already don't have very many picks for next year anyway, so they might have to dip into future later years. And how attractive would that be for another team? You would have to find the right situation. I just think it is a far-fetched idea at this point.
Well, and this buy or sell is specifically asking like 2 players, right? Like I definitely don't see 2.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm selling
see them
that for sure.
To the offense and the defense. I think, after adding Odafe Owe, I don't think we see another move defensively. All the reports that we've seen are that they're after running back help and offensive line help, and even those would have to be reserves with the amount of money they have available to them. So I don't think that we're going to see a move that moves the needle. And Joe Ortiz did not make a deadline move last season. He did make an in-season move this year. Obviously added Taylor Heineke and Elijah Molden at the very beginning of the year before their first game. But yeah, I mean, I do think there's just a chance at this point that we don't see them make another trade. But let's get to this one from Sayout55, who says, buy or sell, the 2025 Chargers aren't worth trading any more future assets to improve the team this year. That's a different question, David. I don't know if they will, but should they be?
Yeah, I think asking me that question after the next two games, I think would be a little bit more accurate for me to be able to tell you, because then I'll know really kind of where they're at. Because right now they're still a game off, just one game off the pace in the AFC West with what they've done so far in the AFC, and obviously still being 3-0 in the division. I still feel like, yeah, there are still a team right now that you should look to add to. I feel like this is still a team that can win some games. Obviously, we know what their issues are. I don't know how likely it is that we see that, but the next two games will go a very far way in dictating that, as the trade deadline is on November 4th.
Yeah, and I think that, obviously if you're a 4-5 team and after the next 2 weeks, I don't think that's a team that's worth trading for.
Exactly.
If you're a 6-3 team, maybe you can make the argument, but even then, if you pull off this win and then you beat the Titans, it doesn't necessarily change who you are. I don't know if they're able to do enough, even if they win the next two games, to prove that they have kind of solved all of the issues that they have, or that they've actually gone up against good enough teams that can exploit them the way some of the other better teams down the road might be able to. I do think there's a serious conversation to be had here, and it's one that I brought up before. You've already sent away 2 2026 picks, your 5th rounder next year and your 7th rounder next year. If you're there's not a move they can make that makes them a Super Bowl contender. There just isn't. I don't think there's a move to be made that guarantees them a playoff spot. There just isn't. If it was that easy, right? If it was 1 or 2 players away, you could make the argument for it. I just don't think they are right now. Maybe once they get guys back, it feels differently and they feel closer to that and they start winning games convincingly. But man, they gave up 27 to the Dolphins, who are probably about to fire their head coach and should have lost that game. They're 2 Justin Herbert miracles kind of at this point away from being a 1-6 team. Think about that. That Denver game was improbable, to say the least. They won convincingly against the Chiefs and the Raiders. I guess it'd be 2-5, right? Chiefs and Raiders, you won convincingly. That Broncos game, it was 20-13, and you have Justin Herbert shaking off dudes to find, touchdown passes to Keenan Allen to tie it, and then they go win it. You have, the incredible play that Justin Herbert makes to Lad McConkey to go win that game against a bad Dolphins team, right? And not a particularly good offense that just got absolutely boat raced by the Cleveland Browns, who aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know, man. It doesn't sound like a trade when you talk about it out loud, like a team that you should be trading future assets for. It feels like a team that, has a ceiling to it, and maybe they can do something the next few games that make me feel differently, but that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. Let's get to one more here, David, a hot topic on social media on Monday, which is this: buy or sell, the Chargers made a mistake releasing Caleb Murphy. Caleb Murphy released. They were not able to get him back on the practice squad. He is now being claimed by the Patriots on waivers. He is gone on their active roster now at this point. David, was that a mistake?
Yeah, I think it was a mistake. I think this was a guy who earned his spot with the team with his play in the offseason and in preseason, being effective on defense, getting after the passer, and also, being a core 4 special teams guy. That was his application to this 2025 team. He had 118 special team snaps, and he was on pretty much every single special teams unit. It didn't matter. He had log snaps in pretty much all of them. So you need those guys. Obviously, you don't see it really show up a lot in the stat sheet, but I think this guy was somebody who was impactful, and also now you're going to see Thule probably a lot more on special teams to kind of compensate for that, which is kind of another drawback of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the buy or sell goes, yes, they made a mistake.
Yeah.
They should have absolutely cut Bud Dupree, period. It makes no sense. If neither guy is being great as an edge rusher, but one of the guys is obviously a much better special teams player or just plays special teams in general, keep that dude. The reason they're in this predicament right now is they added Odafe Owe while Khalil Mack was on IR, so that when Khalil Mack came back, they had to open up that spot. So you're not going to get rid of Owe. You just sent a 5th round pick for him. Tuli Tuipulotu obviously has been good. Then you have Kyle Kennard, a former 4th round pick that you're probably not going to release. You just spent a 4th round pick on him. Caleb Murphy and Bud Dupree. I was so against when they gave Bud Dupree that extension. I'm sure you remember it, David. I didn't understand it.
Just didn't understand
it. Totally
it was so
just
weird.
bamboozled me, and I think people were so, oh, well, he had 6 sacks. And it's like, the numbers don't spell that out. Like, it's just like, it felt like empty stats last year when he had him. And this year, there's been nothing that's shown me otherwise. It was such an easy decision, in my opinion, even with, giving him that contract. Even if he's a great locker room guy, you're not good enough. You don't have good enough players right now to be keeping guys just for what they bring off the field. Same thing with Bradley Bozeman. Like, he could be the best man in the world. If he sucks at playing center, then it's not good enough to be a good dude. It's just not. Like that,
well, it's not enough to just be a good dude. Yeah.
No, it's not good enough to start him because he's a good dude, or give him playing time because he's a good dude. Like, that's, you just need the most talented players out there. And even if they're close as edge rushers, because Bud Dupree hasn't done anything significantly better than Caleb Murphy as an edge rusher, probably a little bit better against the run, but that's your 4th edge rusher. You have 3 other guys now ahead of them. You can make that sacrifice for your 4th edge rusher not being that great, because Bud Dupree's not great. And what happened in this game was the 81-yard kickoff return. The return ran wide at Tuli Tuipulotu. He hadn't played any kickoff snaps the entire season, kickoff coverage snaps. You put him out there, he runs directly towards the middle of the field instead of staying in his lane on the outside. The return man has a just wide open garage door size hole to run through. 81 yards later, you're giving up a touchdown in 2 plays because you just gave it all back on special teams. It doesn't make sense. Like, I understand, defense has to be the priority over special teams, but if it's a negligible difference between what those players are bringing to you defensively, keep the guy who's a really good special teams player. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but like, Tuli looked lost out there. Like, and the whole thing about having, Tuli this year was you weren't going to need him to play those special team snaps, and he could fully focus on defense, and he's been good. He's been the Chargers' best edge rusher, and it hasn't been close.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you're trying to switch it up again. I get it. It was tough. They can't keep 6 edge rushers. They can't play Kyle Kennard right now, but if it comes down to Bud Dupree or Caleb Murphy, I think they thought they could get Murphy back. They couldn't. Now he's gone, and now you just have more questions than you even had before. So, easily buying. I don't think that's an overreaction at all, that was a mistake. You just don't usually get to see it come back to bite you so quickly in the immediate next game. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. It is a weird week because it's Thursday Night Football this week, so that means crossover Thursday. It ain't going to be called crossover something else. That's staying on Thursday, which means tomorrow is going to be our normal Keys for Success show. We'll put out a post getting your guys' bold predictions. We'll also have kind of updates on Joe Walton, who could be playing in this game as well. So make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for that by following us wherever you get your podcast from, and on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel as well. Make sure you're following and subscribing there. Also, you can find the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC, on Twitter at Locked On Chargers, on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We'll be putting a post out where you guys can get your bold predictions on there as well, or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. Big week, David. The Chargers can beat the Vikings, period. JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, it doesn't matter, but they have to play a lot better than they have. And tomorrow we'll tell you exactly what they have to do to secure a gigantic win and get to 5-3. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bulls.